Hello there, welcome back to another series of shows. This week I'm keeping it very rough, just doing talking head to the camera again because we're in the middle of coronavirus lockdown. It just feels like you shouldn't really be like going over the top with your production values at the moment. It just feels a bit of a waste of time. So I'm not gonna, I could but I'm not gonna. Today I'm going to talk about the human condition part 1. There's going to be 3 of them. I've only watched the first part. I'm going to do videos as I see the films. I'm not going to like watch them and pile them up and then do more videos like next week. I'll just do them as I see the film. I'm trying to watch. I'm watching them. There's 2 different versions of the human condition. There's the international version, which is in 3 parts, and there's a Japanese version, which is in 6 parts. But essentially what it means is the Japanese version has the 3-hour films, which make up each part. 1, 2 and 3 are all about 3 hours long. The first one's a bit longer because there's some setup to do. They're all about 3 hours long, 3.5 hours long, and in the international versions that's what they are. And the Japanese versions are like cut in half, like at some point they stop and the story stops and you come back the next day to watch the next bit, the next 10 minutes there if you feel like it. But I've been doing it in the Japanese version. That's what was first seen as is this 6-parter, so that's why I'm doing it. Plus it makes it easier to watch actually. The 6-parter is a more natural watch. I think it would be oppressive in the 3-hour versions, at least to me at the moment in this kind of coronavirus atmosphere where it's a bit hard to sit through depressing films, so I'm doing the 6-part version. This is the version I've got. It's the Arrow Academy box. I mean there is a kind of another standard edition released, but I got the box and looked at it for years thinking I need to watch this, and finally Isaac Dunn has prodded me, bullied me, pushed at me to watch them. And I was going to watch them anyway, but because I could make him watch show if I watch this, it seemed a good exchange. So this is from Kobayashi. Masaki Kobayashi did Harikiri and Qui-Gon, so he's a terrific director. But this is his big opus, this is his big arrival in this film scene. He made some films before that, some a bit more sentimental and 1 or 2 a bit controversial. But this is the when he really got attention internationally and became a major director. And the trilogy is all about one guy called Kaji. It's him going through the war and the aftermath of the war and his ordeals as he tries to prove like there's some humanity, some decency within war, within a society during war. That's what he's trying to prove. He's trying to prove it to himself as well as to other people, because he's a very standoffish person. So I'm not going to go into... It's very hard to avoid spoilers, but there's not really spoilers really. This one's a weird one. It's a story, but it's basically a story about they travel through a war zone and what happens to you during a war. So I'll try and avoid being too specific, but I have to talk about the theme. So generally it's an amazing first person amazing film. It's very dark, it's very humane. I'll talk about it a bit generally first and I might go into specifics. But if I'm going to say something that I would say spoilery, I'll say it. But then again, it's best not to watch parts 2 and 3 until you've seen everything though, really. Otherwise I'll go do that, I'm doing it as you go. But the whole idea is this guy who has probably read too many books in his time, who's in his own head, he's an engineer, he's like a part of the educated class, he thinks he's a humanist, he thinks he is above the scrabble of humanity, he wants to improve humanity and make it better. And he also dislikes the Japanese system of society, the way it's going just now, the way it's been manipulated by the military to become a militaristic expansionist dictatorship basically, and he's an objective, he does not like that. So this is said during, starts like 1942-43, so Japan is in the war at this point. People are getting scared of being drafted, like people who work in industry who have good jobs, they're scared of getting drafted, and some of them are getting drafted and you never and it's assumed you'll never see them again. You know, some people who work in like ore administration, like who create the ore that will be needed for the fights, have got exemptions, and Kaji's one of them because he's an engineer who helps mine ore from the Chinese quarters in Manchuria. So in the first section he suggests there's other ways, while he's waiting to get called up, because all his friends are getting called up, or his one friend's called up, because he doesn't seem to have many friends, he's very much a loner in his own head. He's too annoying for most people, he's too much an idealist for most people. As he's waiting for this to happen, he puts a portrait figure in. Well, this has been my last contribution from Drafted to what I don't want to have anything to do with. Just saying about how the conditions in the mines, ore mines, is terrible, and here are ways to improve it. So instead of being called up, the management look at his thing and say, it's a bit naive, but you may have a point with certain things, so we're going to send you over there. We're going to arrange for you to get a draft exemption, and you go over there and try and increase productivity for the war effort, and try and create better conditions for the men who are digging the ore up to see if that works. But they say, look, you're going to have problems with the people over there because they are used to their own ways of doing things, and it works for them, and they will fight you and everything. So he goes over there knowing it's going to be a tough deal to get through, and he's going to have some problems, but he has no idea how tough it's going to be. He's so naive, he doesn't have a clue, he's not very worldly, and he has to learn through pain, basically, the way the world works. So he goes over there with his wife, who he's just newly married. He wasn't going to marry her because he thought he was going to be drafted. Now it turns out, to get the exemption, he decided, okay, he'll marry her. But he still is having problems dealing with her because he's just some traditionalist elements to him, even though he's meant to be a progressive free thinker. He doesn't really seem to view women as equal. He seems to view them as inferior. He doesn't share his feelings with his wife, he doesn't do anything with her. She's there to deal with the house. So even though he's saying we need all these new things for the men to make their life a lot better, when it comes to women, he's very much traditionalist, he's very much repressed, and he doesn't really understand how to deal with them, like at all. Throughout this whole first part, he is absolutely clueless with women. It's only towards the end he starts to get an idea how to deal with women, really, but he's very naive and he doesn't really know how to deal with it. And he doesn't know how to deal with men either. They're just an abstract concept to him that he has to fight. For women, he just has to ignore, basically, or treat them as whores, because they are whores who go to service the men who work in the mine. So it's either dealing with women as whores or dealing with women as like idealised housemaids. And the men, he just deals as the enemies. They're the enemy, they're the guys who he has to manipulate to get his way, or he has to show he's not going to back down. So in the mining front, he has to actually propose these new ways of doing things that will actually increase productivity by being less cruel to the men, giving them slightly better food, and which will make them, because when he gets there, the men are actually just struggling to survive. You get shifts to survive, to get food to make you survive, but there's very little food. And he's saying if you're a bit fairer to them, you'll have less men off sick because they'll have more food, which means they will be stronger, means they'll come in and work for it a bit more. And they think that's very naive. They think men are beasts, basically, and they have to be whipped into shape. Because these are all the Chinese who are doing it, they view as the Chinese do not want to do this, they have to be forced to do it for food. Because the Japanese and Chinese hate each other. Especially this time, because the Japanese have invaded China and are basically the monsters who are doing horrible things to the people. It's not good. I mean, the Japanese are called the Japanese devils. Like, no one in Japanese in China is trusted at all. So that's a thing Kaji has to deal with. He has to deal with how do you deal with all of these people none of them who really like your ideas, and there's a lot of corruption because there's very little basic supplies, unless you're the rich class like Kaji and like the managers of the mine. Even though it's a hellish location, they've got houses, they've got families, they actually have it a lot better. They don't have it great, but they have it a lot better. They at least have a middle class existence. when and not the mine. But most of the other people don't, and they have to deal with the black market, they have to deal with whores, they have to deal with everything to try and survive. Most of the women have to become prostitutes to survive. Most of the Chinese women. And it's like, and they're treated down, and they're always called whores. I can only say whores because they're called whores all the time. It's like non-stop. They're not called prostitutes in this film, they're called whores because that's the way they're viewed. It's a very interesting film with women because it treats women basically as how are they treated in this society, and they're treated terribly. Whether they're Chinese or Japanese, they're treated terribly. They have to try and deal with it in their own way and try and push through, but the best they can really get to is either to be married and be out of the life of being a prostitute, or to be married and in a good middle class life where you don't get much respect. There's nothing else. This film is pretty brutal about it. This is what the system is. All the women in the film are really great. They're all very strong. They've all got their own motivations. It's just, but it shows you the social elements, the social limitations they're forced to. The guy keeps plugging away. Kanji keeps plugging away, and slowly but surely starts to get some headway. But it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Constantly, he's pushing forward. He has things fall on him. He has to keep pushing forward. He has some people there that start to see his way of doing things, like his second in command, Oshima. He's, you know, when we first see him, he seems just another brute, but he seems intelligent. And as he sees that Kaji's ideas actually work in these people, like he was just doing another way because they were in enemy territories. Like, it's not for the best, but it's like it's the best we can do in this circumstance. But once he sees the way Kaji treats them, it actually works. They can be civilised to each other. They may not have to like each other, but they can try and compromise and find a way to live for us while the war's on. So he's okay. He's an older guy. He's okay. He's got a young half Chinese, half Japanese guy called Chen who's in the office as well, helping him out. He's very naive. He's even more naive than Kaji, and as the film goes on, you see how the people who are naive are taken advantage of, because the black market has lots of different cultures of Koreans, who both the Chinese and the Japanese hate. You've got the Chinese black market with all their different machinations. They're all connected to the mines and different mine leaders who use the black market for their own nefarious needs. You know, everyone's in on it in different ways because they need each other. So they work together and they create something that is very compromised. But it's just trying to get through this horrible situation. And which is something that Kaji never appreciates, is like, yeah, there are some people in their minds who are bad people, who are really nasty people. But most of them, it's just a job. Most of them, it's like, I'm not going to push myself here, I'm just going to try and survive it. I mean, the branch, the manager of the mine, Kaji keeps on calling him a traitor and all the rest behind his back. But he's just a guy who's trying not cause trouble. He's trying to deal with the military. He's trying to deal with his company, try and make sure there's quotas, try and push his men to make sure the quotas are met. That's all he's trying to do. But he's like demonised by by Kaji as not having backbone. He does not have any humanity. When he's just hard working stuff, it's like he's not interested enough to do anything really. He's just, and that's how they portray him. Is like, that's a very limited person. You just have to deal with it. There's lots of people there who are like that. They're company men. Their idea of success is to try and survive within a company, just to be the Chinese success is trying to survive to the end of the war, when the Japanese get chucked out. Everyone's got their own way of dealing with things. The people in the camps pretty much view it as, we have to get through this until the Japanese are pushed back, because they know the Americans are fighting the Japanese now. They know the Japanese have gone too far, they're going to get beaten. They have to wait it out. And it's all about people waiting it out. And into this comes Kaji, who's trying to save lives. He's genuinely trying to save lives. But there's always this thing that people are bringing up to him, this idea that he's doing it for himself in a lot of ways. He's trying to prove how good he is to himself. And is he as good as he thinks he is? He doesn't show, even he knows that, even he admits that he doesn't know. But he's trying, and it's about Does he become a human being, or does he become, you know, this animal who just tries to survive like the rest of them? And that's the kind of conflict the first episode of The Human Condition, the first two parters, the first third basically, Human Condition. Do you become an animal or do you become a human being? And that's the whole point of it. And it has struggled to see what's the sacrifices he has to make to become a human being. Now I'm going to get into spoilers, right? So if you haven't seen it, this is to be cut off and go, okay, I'll stop now and I'll come back when I've seen it, if I'm interested in seeing any more of this video of this guy talking into camera. But this is a spoiler section. I need to go into spoilers. And basically, as it goes on, they bring in some Chinese prisoners. They say they're prisoners of war. In fact, they're not prisoners of war. They're farmers who are brought from villages, and maybe they're conscripted by the Chinese for a little bit, but they're basically farmers. And they've been starved to death, and it's basically, when you first see them, they come out of a train. It's like a concentration camp image of all these starving people. Some of them have died on the trains. It's just concentration camp, and they have to stop them from eating some of the supplies too quickly, otherwise they'll die because their bodies are not used to food. That's how deadly the situation is. And they have to build a camp really quickly to house these people so they can put them to work at the war camp. Because Kanji has actually had some success with the prisoner, with the other workers, he's put in charge of the Chinese. And this is going to be where he finds out how good he is. It's also, this is what's going to define him as a person for the rest of his life. How he deals with them. And he knows it. And he's very self-conscious about it. And he's very annoying about it to people. And patronising, and you know, he's trying his best, and because these Chinese obviously want to escape, because that's what you do. But there's a wire fences around them. It's electrified, so you can't do that. You can't escape at all. You will be fried if you try and escape. And he has to try and negotiate with them and try and bring them back up to health, get them to work. Get them treated humanely, so they know, look, so you can say to them, look, it's a bad situation for both of us. We just have to try and survive till this war's over, you know. And we'll try and I'll try and save your lives, or you do this for me. So the basic thing about Kanji is he's still supplying the war effort. He's not fighting the war himself, but he's supplying all the metal that went to the guns, went to the crafts, all the aircrafts and the ships that will go to war and kill people. So he's still part of the machine. He's not killing directly, but he's still liable, and he seems to know that, but it seems to be really getting to him. Like, he does not want to be part of this machine, but he is. And he knows whatever he's doing is really compromised morally. There's no way out for him, but he is morally compromised. And that kind of, and everyone knows it, and everyone knows he's pushing back so much because he knows how morally compromised he actually is. And it creates this great tension within the character, and this great tension for the film is like, this character is avoiding the worst thing he's doing, which is he's supplying a war effort that's going to cause lots of deaths on all these different islands around the Pacific. Like, he's supplying the goods that will actually keep the fighting going. So he's not innocent in any way, but he's trying to redeem himself through these Chinese prisoners in some way. And life gets in the way because the black market gets out of control, because it's more profitable for them to let some of the prisoners escape, then bring them back, capture them, get the reward. That's what the black market wants to do. So they end up compromising Chen, who's the assistant, to get his pal at the power station to let the power drop for a very short time so the Chinese can escape. Which happens. And then now Chen's tied to the base of the underworld, and he's getting more and more compromised and more guilty. I mean, Kanji actually works out how this happened. Like, it was Chen had a friend at the power station, and he more or less says, look, don't do it again. You know, really, I know it was you, but don't do it again. Because Kanji's trying to be decent, trying to ensure people behave properly, but he's trying not to have people arrested for something that was it was a mistake that they can learn from. So he's not that bad, And it's sort of like everybody knows who it was who did it. It's like, don't tell them the bosses, the top bosses, but we all know who was compromised. And then basically, as it keeps on going, I mean, the guy who did it never gets moved from the power station. It's such a corrupt system. And then later on, when Kaji's going back, managed to get a few days off, he'll be with his wife, finally gets some days off, there's a mass escape, which he does not tell the military about, because the military brought these Chinese in, these prisoners in, and said, if they escape, it's on you, to Kaji. He doesn't tell them the escapes. But eventually all builds and builds and builds as Cheng is more compromised and more guilty, as the different black market people become compromised people all around, and as Kaji becomes much more aware that time's running out, that things are getting out of control, that just the basic deficiency of the human soul and also the good part of the human soul is such a mess that chaos is going to happen no matter what you do. And it just all goes to shit basically. And it all comes to a head. But it doesn't come to a head with people escaping, it comes to a head because of one of the guys who work the mine, who one of the managers who goes about, he's a whip, he goes about happy with some people one day and they trying to run away and they're accused of escaping. And this unfortunately happens when the military's in the area. And as soon as that comes up, it all comes out that the people have escaped and been brought back, and all this compromises that Kaji's had to make. You know, everything sort of falls on Kaji. This is where he has to make the decision. What's he going to do? Is he going to be a man or is he going to be an animal? And for a while he breaks and he's not going to do anything. He's going to try his best to use the political elements, but he's not going to stand up to the military until a few people that maybe are actually killed and beheaded in front of him. He finally has the guts to stand up. And of course, all goes to hell for him. Like, it's like he could have had an easy war because he stood up for these people and wasn't corrupt. He gets tortured by the Japanese military, called a sympathizer, because they're all paranoid but sympathizers. They do not want to see these Chinese as humans. These are just things they use. The Japanese are militaristic. They have no, in this film, they have no sympathy for the Chinese at all. They're the enemy, you know, while Kaji looks at them as human beings with good and bad. And the whole thing becomes this mess where all the compromises they've had to make to keep this thing running, like a compromise that happen in real life all the time, because in real life you always get this thing of the perfect front of how this works perfectly because of all these things we've done to make it work. In reality, there's a lot of compromise behind the scenes that no one ever talks about that keeps it going. That's happened throughout human history. That's just the way it works. And that's the way this Chinese camp had worked. There was compromises, there was give and take. There were people lying to each other all the time, people catching each other on the lie, you know, and eventually it started to get crazy and people started getting caught in the lies and people like Chen were getting killed because of or committing suicide because of the pain of what was going on. People falling in love, and then though that was being compromised by life, it was becoming more and more horrific. The way life could be horrific, very random ways that it's very hard to predict, but it's always tragic. And people who use each other start to become fond of each other despite the fact that they're still using each other, and it's like everything's very complicated, nothing's black, everything's very grey. And because Kaji goes against that at the end and actually discovers his humanism, so it's not a front anymore, it's what's in his soul, he gets tortured and ends up losing his military exemption. So even though he saves the people in the camp, he's the one that has to fall for it because he's been told he has to go and do military service now. And that's how the film ends. And some people who you have sympathy towards have died. The thing with the film is it's all about the build of events. It's not like very pedantic that certain films can be, who try to do important subjects. This actually shows the important subject of the price of a person's soul within a compromised society, but how life can go out of control and compromise in ways you have not anticipated. But it's also about this grace of realising your flaws and trying to improve upon them and actually start to feel something rather than just being this person who's doing it for a principle that's not emotional. There's no emotion tied to it. Like, he learns to be a humanist, Kaji learns to be a humanist, and it's a complicated way of doing it. It's not like a simple thing. It's not like a Spielberg thing where I have learned how to be good to mankind and now I'm much better. It's like, no, you're going to suffer for this and you're going to keep on suffering for this. Just because you've learned a lesson doesn't mean the world cares, like, at all. And what's what a lot of characters learn, just because they've learned something, they'll probably learned it too late, or the world's so cruel that you're going to get killed anyway. Like, there's a prisoner of war who's a terrific character, one of the Chinese, who falls in love with a prostitute and they have a really nice relationship, and he stays in the camp and doesn't escape to be close to her. And of course the cruelty of life is he's one of the guys who's caught up in the guy being cruel, and he's one of the ones that are executed. And of course the prostitute after that blames Kaji and he's a Japanese devil, even when people say, look, no, he tried his best. But it's complicated, and it's like you can see exactly where she's coming from and exactly how she's been destroyed by the way life has gone. It's not exactly Kaji's fault, but he's not exactly innocent either. And Chen's died partly because of Chen, but also partly because of Kaji wasn't forceful enough to say, like, you better not do that again, come and tell me if there's any problem with this. He wasn't forceful enough, he was stepped back too much, and he wasn't forceful enough against his own people. So a lot of the problems he had that came at him was because he was so different and tried to keep a distance. And he wasn't full on with his beliefs. And it's about the things of learning is a painful process, but it's also, it doesn't give you a free pass to, once you've learned you're on your way. It's like, once you've learned, life's going to be more cruel to you. Because Kaji learns his lesson, but at a horrible cost to himself. I mean, he's now going to have to do military service during a war that he doesn't believe in. It's like it's a building up of events the way that life can be cruel and random to create a complexity of this is the way life is. It's not simple, it's complicated and naughty, and it's going to get you. So that's my video on the human condition part 1. I don't want to go any further because I've tried to watch parts 2 and 3 and I think they'll be complicated as well. I don't want to just keep going on about stuff, because I'm sure I'll refer, parts 2 and 3 will refer back to part 1 as well, so I want to try and keep it simple enough here so that I can go on and then refer back to it. So that's me. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back soon probably with parts 2 and 3, but also I'll be back with some other videos for this week. Okay, bye for now.